poor orphan sang softly to a dying billionaire until this happened. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved one. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. The nurse told me he didn't speak much. Just stared out the window, didn't eat, didn't respond to family visits. But the first time I sang to him, he looked at me. His eyes, gray and sunken, moved for the first time in what the nurse said was weak. I kept coming back. Every afternoon, I'd sit by the large window in his room and sing while the sun dropped below the trees outside. Sometimes he'd close his eyes. Other times he'd just watch me like he was seeing something long gone. We didn't talk much, not at first. But once, in a quiet moment between songs, he whispered, "You've got the voice of an angel, the kind that makes an old man believe again." His name was Ernest Vale, one of those tech billionaires who built things too complicated for someone like me to understand. Everyone knew his name, but no one really knew him. His kids visited sometimes, 3 of them. They dressed like they were always going somewhere expensive. They never stayed long. And they never looked at me. One day, he asked me to stay after the nurse had left. He was weaker than usual. He looked like a shadow. "I don't want to die angry," he said. "They're waiting for me to go, so they can rip what I built to pieces. But you made me feel like a person again. You reminded me of something I forgot." He held out a shaky hand and pressed something into mine. "A key. Drawer in my office. Take it when I'm gone. You'll understand." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. I didn't think it meant much. 3 days later, he died in his sleep. The funeral was small but tense. His kids stood around like they were at a business meeting. I sat in the back, not sure if I even belonged there. Then came the reading of the will. The lawyer looked nervous. "To my children," he said, "I leave each a trust not to exceed what they've earned in my eyes." And then my name. "To Calamarin, I leave the rest." The room went silent. Savannah Vale's mouth fell open. Maxwell actually laughed, like it was some kind of joke. I felt everything stop in my chest. They turned on me like wolves. "You manipulated him," Savannah spat. "You little nobody." But I didn't even want the money. At least, not until they made me. "You really think you're walking away with a single cent?" Maxwell Vale's voice was calm, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. He wore a suit like armor, custom and sharp. I was still in my thrift store jeans and a cardigan with a tear in the sleeve. I stayed quiet. "You're nothing. A street rat with a sad voice and a charity case sob story." He leaned closer, voice low. "But don't worry. We're going to dig until we find the dirt. Everyone's hiding something." They didn't wait long. Within a week, my face was all over the tabloid. Teen gold digger, manipulative songbird, hospice harlot. Photos of me as a kid in foster home. A blurry picture of me crying behind a dumpster, taken when I was 13 and got kicked out of my 4th foster home. Headlines mocked my mental health, twisting a journal entry I'd written about feeling invisible. One site claimed I'd seduced a dying man for his fortune. They hired private investigators, stalked my old caseworkers, dug through everything. They tried to drag me through the mud until there was nothing left to bury. I told Ernest's lawyer I didn't want the money. I wanted to walk away. He reached into his desk and pulled out a small black USB. "I was instructed to give you this if things got ugly," he said. He knew they would. I took it home, hands shaking. My laptop wheezed as I plugged it in. There was one file. A video labeled, "If They Come for Her." Ernest's face appeared on the screen, frail, worn, but steady. His voice cracked as he spoke. "Calla," he said, "if you're watching this, they've turned on you. I'm sorry." He looked down, then back up. "They never loved me. Not really. They loved what I gave them. You were the only one who saw me when I was just a man. That's why I'm giving you more than money. I'm giving you leverage, power." He listed off a series of logins, vaults, and 2 passwords. One was my name. The other was the name of his dead wife. Then his voice dropped lower. "There's a clause in my will, buried deep. If any of my heirs take legal action against you, they forfeit their shares entirely. It activates automatically. The lawyer doesn't even need court approval." I sat frozen. Then the screen went black. I wasn't just some poor girl who inherited a fortune. I was the one holding the detonator. The key Ernest had given me, small, silver, taped inside a folded paper with my name written in shaky pen, fit the drawer in his office like it had been waiting. The house was cold, quiet, too large for anyone to truly live in. His children had already stripped the rooms of valuables, claiming sentimental items, which apparently included a $60,000 sculpture and a vintage Rolex. But they hadn't found the drawer. Behind his desk, beneath a false panel, it clicked open. Inside was a laptop, dusty and outdated, and a leather-bound journal with a small brass clasp. At the very back sat a sealed envelope, labeled in his tidy handwriting, "Open only if they come for you." I took it all and locked myself in my tiny apartment for the next 2 days. The laptop booted slowly, and I waited like someone holding a live wire. There were only a few folders on the desktop. One was called Vale Estate, one was just tax, and then one in bold all caps, blackmail. When I clicked it, my mouth went dry. There were photos first. Dozens. Maxwell Vale at a nightclub, with a girl who couldn't have been more than 15. Another image, blurry but clear enough, showed him paying off a bouncer. The timestamps matched the same night a minor filed charges that mysteriously vanished. Then video clips. Savannah Vale giving a tearful speech about saving children in Uganda, followed by emails detailing how less than 3% of donations actually made it to any charity. The rest went into luxury expenses. One memo labeled fund allocation included champagne dinners and private driver retainer. I opened the journal. It wasn't a diary. It was a ledger. Detailed records of hush payments, buried lawsuits, and even entries about conversations with a judge he paid off to keep Maxwell out of prison. I turned the page. More letters, correspondence with lawyers, newspaper editors, and even other CEOs warning Ernest to keep Savannah in check before the IRS starts sniffing. There were copies of their own texts. Maxwell threatening a girl into silence. Savannah mocking donors with the words, "Idiots hand over their wallets for a few sad photos." My heart pounded. They called me a con artist, a leech, a nobody. But the truth was right here, file after file that could ruin them all. Ernest hadn't just left me a fortune. He'd left me the match, the gasoline, the blueprint to burn their whole empire down. And now I held it all in my hands. Neve didn't even say goodbye. I came home one night to find her side of the room empty. No clothes, no photos, not even the stupid cactus she always forgot to water. Just a post-it on the kitchen counter. I needed space. Don't take it personally. At first, I thought maybe she was scared of all the attention. My name was everywhere. News sites, gossip blogs, morning shows. They called me a scammer, a manipulator, a foster care con artist. I figured Neve didn't want to be caught in the mess. But then my phone stopped working. Bank cards declined. My rent app locked me out. I called the bank, shaking. They said my accounts had been frozen due to pending fraud investigation. I tried logging into my backup email. Password was wrong. Tried again. Still wrong. Then I remembered. The only person who knew my email password, my security questions, my journal entries, my hiding places, was Neve. We'd lived together for 2 years. She'd helped me through panic attacks, cheered me on at open mic nights. She held me when I cried after the will reading. And she sold me. I got the confirmation in a single message from Maxwell's burner account. Your friend was cheap, $50,000 for everything. Location, passwords, even your sad little diary. Hope you enjoyed the spotlight, or we're just getting started. I threw my phone across the room. She'd given them everything. Every fear I'd written down, every draft email I never sent, every dumb line about how I didn't feel like I belonged. She made me vulnerable. Then she handed me over. A week passed in chaos. Reporters waited outside my building. A drone flew up to my third-floor window. One site published pieces of my journal, called it a psych profile, said I had delusions of grandeur, said I was mentally unstable. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The police said it wasn't illegal, just a private matter. My lawyer told me to lay low. I nearly broke. But then I remembered the folder, the photos, the recordings, the ledger. They'd taken everything from me. They thought they'd buried me. But they forgot the one thing I never stored online, never told anyone about, never showed Neve. The original hard copy of the blackmail, every crime, every lie, every piece of dirt, was still safe, hidden in a hollowed-out music book on my shelf. They had my passwords, but I still had the power. The photo I picked wasn't the worst one. It was grainy, dark, taken at some rooftop party with overpriced cocktails and glowing heat lamp. Maxwell was mid-laugh, his arms slung around a girl who looked terrified to be there. She was 15. He was 28. In the corner, barely visible, was the date stamp. The same night the police report had been filed, and mysteriously dropped the next day. I didn't post it under my name. I made a burner Reddit account, uploaded the image with a short caption. This is Maxwell Vale, billionaire heir. The girl in this photo was 15. Charges disappeared. Guess why? I cross-posted it to Twitter. Attached the police report. Blurred out her face, but not his. Then I closed my laptop and waited. By the time I woke up, #ValeFiles was trending. People didn't just believe it. They fed on it. TikTok creators made breakdown videos. Reddit dug up old posts from club staff, doormen, even ex-girlfriends of Maxwell's who said he was protected by his father's lawyers. Twitter users linked it to other rich kid scandals. Memes exploded. Journalists started asking questions. Then came the real break. A user claiming to be the girl's older sister posted a statement. She confirmed it. Said their family was paid off. Said her sister still had nightmares. It went viral in minutes. News stations picked it up. Maxwell Vale trending. Ernest Vale's fortune under fire. Mystery girl inherits empire. Family in chaos. And then the FBI. They released a statement saying they were opening a review of past allegations involving the Vale family. That included campaign contributions, charity fraud, and now, potential child exploitation. Maxwell went silent. Savannah deleted her social. The Vale Corp issued a bland press release. Baseless claims, out of context, digitally altered. But no one bought it. The internet was already 5 steps ahead, connecting dots, building timeline, digging through old interviews and financial leaks. Everyone wanted more, but I stayed quiet. No interviews. No videos. No emails. I watched it unfold from my tiny room with curtains drawn and phone turned off. I had hundreds of files left to share, but I only needed one. One photo, one caption, and the empire started to collapse. They built their lives on silence and money, but they forgot what happens when people start listening. I knew they'd hit back. I just didn't expect them to do it so loudly. 1 week after the photo went viral, I was served on my doorstep 3 thick packets stamped with gold-embossed letters and unreadable legal jargon. Maxwell and Savannah Vale were suing me for defamation, invasion of privacy, and malicious intent. They wanted $40 million in damage. $40 million. They went straight to the press, held a smug little press conference where Savannah cried about being targeted by a mentally unstable orphan girl who was weaponizing lies for attention. Maxwell didn't speak, probably on legal gag order, or just drunk. For a moment, I panicked. That kind of number doesn't feel real. It feels like being hit with a truck made of paper and numbers. Then I remembered Ernest's gift. The crypto wallet had been mentioned in his journal. A string of random characters I'd written down months ago and tucked away. I logged in and nearly passed out. $1.2 million. Left there just in case, he'd said. I used a tiny fraction of it to hire Zara Lee, a lawyer so sharp her name alone scared most men in suits. She looked over the files, smiled like a cat, and said, "Oh, we're not playing defense." She filed a countersuit within 2 days. We named Maxwell and Savannah in a civil RICO claim, organized criminal conduct, fraud, cover-ups, money laundering, and in Maxwell's case, assault and coercion. The foundation scam, the silenced victims, the NDA payoffs, all of it. Zara tied it together like a weapon, and then we leaked just enough to get the public curious. I gave 2 anonymous interviews, voice changed, name redacted, face blurred. I told them how I met Ernest, what he said in the final days, how scared he was of what his children had become. I showed them 1 page of the ledger. 1. That's all it took. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. Headlines changed from orphan gold digger to heiress with receipts. #Vale files surged again. Investigators called Zara for copies. Reporters begged for interviews. Talk shows debated whether I was a liar or a whistleblower. But the public? They already decided. They'd seen the photo. They remembered the charities. And now they wanted the truth. Maxwell and Savannah thought they could bury me with a lawsuit. Instead, I dragged them into the light. And I was just getting started. And I wasn't done yet. Ernest's death was quiet. Peaceful, they said. Natural causes. He'd been sick for a long time, and no one questioned it. Not even me. But something didn't sit right. The timing. The way the will had been filed only 3 days before he died. The way his children showed up hours after, already prepared to fight. Like they knew. Then came the toxicology report. Zara found it buried in hospital records while preparing for our countersuit. It hadn't been reviewed closely, marked normal range for palliative care. But one line stood out. High concentration of morphine, higher than prescribed. That wasn't normal. We contacted the hospice nurse who'd been on shift the night Ernest died. She was hesitant at first. Said she'd already spoken to family lawyers. But when she heard what I had, she changed her tone. I was told not to say anything, she said. But yes, Maxwell was there. He came late. Said he wanted privacy with his father. Then he told me the meds needed adjusting. Said Ernest was in pain. Said he had permission. He didn't. The nurse left the room for less than 15 minutes. When she returned, Maxwell was gone. Ernest was asleep. By morning, he was dead. Zara got that statement recorded under oath. That's when it hit me. Maybe the will wasn't the real reason they were furious. Maybe they already knew what it said. Maybe they'd found out Ernest's plan to leave them nothing. And maybe they couldn't risk that being finalized. What if Ernest hadn't just died? What if someone helped him along? I dug through the journal again, looking for anything that pointed to fear, suspicion, or warnings. On 1 page, written in slanted, shaky handwriting, Ernest had scribbled. Max came late again. Asked about morphine doses. Told him no. Must speak to Zara tomorrow. Final version ready. The next page had no writing. The day after that was the day he died. I couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just about inheritance. This was about silencing a man before he could make a decision they didn't like. Before he could lock it in. Zara filed a motion to reopen Ernest's death investigation. The state coroner got involved. The nurse agreed to testify. We submitted the journal entry as evidence. I didn't want to believe it, but now I did. They didn't just want the money. They wanted it bad enough to kill for it. It happened on a Sunday night. I was staying at a friend's place across town. Zara's suggestion. She said I needed to lay low while the investigation into Ernest's death gained traction. My apartment had become a magnet for photographers, stalkers, and the occasional concerned Vale supporter with a phone camera and bad intentions. So I wasn't home when they came. 2 men. Black hoodies, gloves, ski masks. One carried a crowbar. The other had a duffel bag. They didn't knock. They didn't waste time. They went straight for the door, forced it open, and walked inside like they owned the place. They tore through everything, ripped open drawers, dumped closets, kicked over furniture. They even cut open the couch cushions like they thought I'd hidden something inside. They were looking for the files, the original copies of Ernest's journal, the photos, the recordings. But I'd already moved everything to a secure location. All they got was a destroyed apartment and a huge problem. Because 3 weeks earlier, after the second time someone tried to follow me home, I'd installed cameras. 2 inside, 1 in the hallway, 1 right above the front door. All connected to a cloud drive. All motion activated. I watched the footage the next morning, stomach churning, hands shaking. They didn't speak much, just whispered and grunted. But at one point, one of them pulled out his phone and read a message off the screen. His voice was caught clearly on audio. Savannah said it's behind the piano. Take the book and go. That was all I needed. I sent the footage to Zara first, then to the police. Within 48 hours, the men were arrested, and Savannah's name was dragged into the official report. The story hit the news within the day. Vale heiress linked to break-in of teen whistleblower's home. This time, even the networks that used to call me unstable started asking real questions. Suddenly, I wasn't the manipulative orphan. I was the girl they tried to rob, the one they tried to silence. People rallied. #ValeFiles surged again. A petition to formally charge Savannah hit 100,000 signatures in 2 days. Journalists begged for statements. Strangers offered to help replace what I'd lost in the break-in. My world was still in chaos. My apartment looked like a war zone, but for once the tide had turned. They thought they could scare me into disappearing. They forgot I was recording the whole time, that it didn't happen all at once. First, it was just a rumor, a single tweet from an aviation tracker account. Private Vale Corp jet grounded by federal order. FBI involved. Then the rest followed like a dam breaking. FBI agents raided Vale Corp's main office downtown. News helicopters circled overhead while men in suits carried out boxes of files, servers, and hard drive. Workers stood outside, watching in silence. The company issued a bland statement about full cooperation, but it was too late. The investigation had gone public. And Maxwell? He tried to run. A tip came in from a harbor official down in Florida. Someone had spotted a man matching Maxwell's description boarding a yacht under a fake name. He didn't even bother with disguise, just sunglasses and a hoodie, thinking money would do the rest. It didn't. The FBI caught him about 30 miles out, just off the coast. A full SWAT team boarded the yacht. He was dragged out in cuffs, barefoot, and yelling about illegal persecution. The video was everywhere within the hour. I watched it loop on every channel. Maxwell Vale, heir to a billion-dollar empire, stumbling in swim trunks, screaming that it was all a setup while agents read him his rights. But it didn't stop there. With the files I'd given them, the feds opened a full investigation into Savannah's charity, Hearts For. For years, she'd been the public face of compassion. Teary speeches, red carpet galas, even photo ops with starving children. Turns out, less than 4% of the money actually reached any real program. The rest? Designer clothes, private jets, a mansion she claimed was a retreat center. When the breakdown went viral, celebrities and influencers who once praised her started deleting old posts. Sponsors pulled out. Donors demanded refund. Some even threatened lawsuits of their own. The Vale name, once a symbol of power and influence, became poison. Boards dropped their logos. Partners canceled deals. A university stripped Ernest's name off a tech building. Everything they built was falling apart. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I wasn't just some girl who got lucky. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was the reason the truth came out. No amount of money could undo what they'd done. And no amount of running could save them now. The cemetery was quiet. No cameras, no crowds, no reporters. Just a cold breeze and the sound of leaves scraping across the ground. I was the only one there. Not one of his children showed up. No grand speeches, no marble tomb, no gold-plated casket. Just a small headstone with his name, birth year, and one line he once told me to use. He was complicated, but he tried. I stood there for a long time, just looking at the stone, holding the old guitar I used to bring to the hospice. Then I sat on the grass, legs crossed like I used to do in his room, and I sang. No audience. No stage. Just me and the wind and the ghost of a man who'd changed everything. It was the first song I ever sang to him. Afterward, I left a single white rose on the stone. Then I walked away. The trust fund Ernest left me was large, enough to live like royalty. But I didn't want the empire. Not the cars, not the mansions, not the company. I gave most of it away, split it among small, honest charities, the kind Savannah used to pretend she supported. I asked for only one thing, a modest fund for college, and the rights to every song I'd written in the weeks before and after his death. In secret, I booked time in a studio under a different name, recorded 10 tracks, all inspired by him, his voice, our talks, the pain, the quiet, the storm. I uploaded the album without a face, just a name, Cala //songs for a stranger. It took off within days. TikTok picked it up first. A single verse went viral. People called it haunting, raw, real. Spotify streams passed 1 million. YouTube covers popped up. The voice that once sang beside a dying man now echoed in headphones, cars, bedrooms across the country. No one knew it was me. I kept it that way. I didn't go on tour. I didn't do interviews. I didn't sign with a label. I just let the music live. Maxwell and Savannah were gone, out of the spotlight, buried under lawsuits and shame. Vale Corp was broken up and sold in pieces. Ernest's name faded from business headlines, but not from the songs. And me? I disappeared. No mansion, no press, no fame, just peace. I went back to the only thing I ever had, my voice. And though the world didn't see my face anymore, they heard me everywhere.